So this is a quick introductory video to BattleBox3D and some of the features that it has. The forum's been up for a while and there have been a lot of questions, but we haven't had a ton of information about BattleBox or what it is. BattleBox used to be called 3D Virtual Tabletop, and now we call it BattleBox3D. We just like the name better. And let me give you a quick overview of what it does. BattleBox3D is a multi-platform 3D virtual tabletop. And it's very different from a lot of the virtual tabletops that you've probably seen out there. It has the unique characteristic of being fully 3D and completely game neutral. Obviously we're using Unity. We'll just go ahead and skip the registration and we'll go into single player. So in single player mode you have a 3D virtual surface. This is what we call the table surface. And it's kind of boring in and of itself, but where the real magic happens is when you open up the library. I'm going to go ahead and hit tab for that. And you start putting objects on it. In this case I'm going to go to other. Grab a guy model, probably a couple more. And as you can see, these are simple 3D models that are there. They let you move things around. The method I'm using to move things around right now is called pick and place. What you do is you simply select with the left mouse button and place it with the right. It automatically goes right to where you put it. If you want, you can hold M and move the mouse, and that'll move it along a 2D plane that's this way or this way. You can do the same thing with rotation. If you wanted to rotate in 3D, you just click on the model, drag in the desired direction you want to go, and release. You can combine the movement and direction, like so. If you want to move something in groups, you can just select the group, and the group moves. Same thing with rotation. If you want to measure, you can just left-click and drag on the model, and it'll pop up a little measuring tool. It's point-to-point accurate, so the distance from the head to the feet is of course different. This is great for wargaming. It's also useful for establishing line of sight on, let's see, do a good line of sight demo. So it cuts right through, kind of like a laser pointer. The cool thing about 3D VT is you can actually stack models on top of each other using that pick and place method, which is pretty useful if you wanted to build some ruins and work with them in a D&D or other role-playing venue. Another characteristic of models that's fairly interesting is you can glue them together as a group by just hitting G. Now whenever I select one, I select all of them. If I want to break that link, I just hit Alt-G, and now I can select them as individuals. A really fun feature we have is the ability to open up a model by double-clicking. It opens its model panel. And we have the ability to pick and place, that's selecting with the left mouse button here, and placing them inside of their model panel. That means that these models are literally inside of this one. So we can take this model and we can place it somewhere else in the world. And when we're ready, we can control left-click all the models in the model panel and place them out in the world, and they'll all spring out of the model that they came out of. Now this is very cool. And you know, these models are built in. There are some other models that are built in that do other things. In this case we have a system of dice. Now 3D dice are kind of everywhere in virtual tabletops. Ours roll basically by randomly setting each axis of rotation and then applying a force to each random axis of rotation, and we get a random roll. It's actually a little bit more random than doing it in physics, but also lets us control it over a network. So here are just some various dice. Now the great thing about our dice is that they are indeed re-rollable, and as they re-roll they pop and change color. Now the yellow is a little bit hard to see, we're working on that one, but as you can see they do indicate to change color. If you want to make a note on a model, let's say he has some specific stats, you can actually change it to, hit points 10, and it shows up in the main window. So you can see that, or you can of course hide it just by hitting labels. You can see that information at your leisure. There are other things you can do as well, such as double-clicking on the table surface, setting the background or the table surface texture. You can set the color. These are all preset. We're adding more as we go, but these allow you to add a little bit of fun and mystery to things. Those are some of the basic functions. Talking about the more advanced functions, 3D Virtual Tabletop as a concept is something we wanted to make very literal. In the real world, you can take a unique model and you can put it on a virtual table or on a real tabletop, and it's there. Everyone can see it. And that's a lot harder to do in video games because you have to have that asset to begin with, and there's a lot of complicated syncing involved with that. And let me show you what we do to solve that. So we're able to take, let's go use terrain. I have a terrain folder here. And I've opened up my models folder, or my models library. If you're using Windows 8, you can just type in from the Metro screen, I guess they're calling it, models, and it'll bring up a model library. In there you can add some custom built Collada format 3D models. We can talk about that in another video. But let's just say I've made all of these terrain pieces and I want to use them. So in order to use them, I'll go ahead and making sure that they're in my models library, restart the program. It'll take a little extra second to load up. That's just the tabletop processing all of the models. And we'll go ahead and skip our registration again since this is just a demo. Now inside of my library is now a folder called Terrains. Inside of Terrains is a set of models, and we'll go ahead throw in a simple terrain, which is pretty fun to work with. A burnt out old building, and let's say, where's a fun one? Put it in a crater and put that over there. Don't worry about that for now. So commonly in D&D we use terrains or maps like this, and we're used to drawing on them, and that's all great and everything, but it's kind of boring. With BattleBox, what we decided we wanted to do was to be able to have a grid on all of our terrain at all times. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off this. Well, we'll leave the grid on for now, but we'll go in and we'll hit this little button, and we have a grid right on top of our models. Now, these grids are not inside of the actual texture for these 3D models, but they are overlaid on top of the model. And what's cool about it is if you look, watch this terrain as I move it, the grid stays put. So you can actually put several different models together to form one big, large model and still maintain your grids. This isn't really useful in wargaming, but for a role-playing gamer, this can be some pretty critical stuff, and you don't have to rely anymore on, bland yellow mats. You can just have the terrain that you want. So it's a pretty powerful feature. We're loving it a lot. One of the great parts about 3D Virtual Tabletop is being able to bring in larger terrains. Now, these take a little while to transfer over network because they're so big, but it's very impressive. And when you're hosting a game, or if you're working with a lot of friends and you're playing a war game or something like that, having a really impressive array of stuff is just fun. Now, a problem that can sometimes happen is you might start moving your terrain by accident. And what we did was we decided we would just set that to be able to be lockable. So you just press L, and the terrain or whatever model that you chose to lock is no longer selectable easily. All you have to do, though, is double-click on it and unlock. Again, since it's in the terrain folder, you can just click to add grids. Now I don't really care for grids because I'm a wargamer personally, but we'll go ahead and relock our terrain. Now what's unique about this is that these models transfer from your computer to other people's right when you put them on the tabletop. So there's about a 20 to 30 second delay for a model. So this will transfer this model here. If this were put in my models folder, it would transfer in about 20 seconds. This one might take 30 to 40 seconds for the terrain, but we have some pretty quick model syncing times. This means that you can make an utterly unique model. You don't have to sync anything beforehand. You can just put that object on the table and it'll slowly load up into, well, not really slowly, not anymore. It'll quickly load up onto the tabletop and you can play with them. They'll see it just like you're seeing this here now. So as you can see, this is a great presentation tool. It lets you really get interesting, and when you mix it with being able to change the ground texture, for instance, and the sky, you can get some pretty neat effects. Now, the last thing I want to show you is something that we've been recently introducing is lights into BattleBox. And these lights, we limit how many you can put in because obviously you can jam as much as you want onto this tabletop and it could crash your computer. If you put in too much, it's just like a poly count in a regular game. But these lights have controllable colors that you can change with conventional color sliders. They have intensity, range, and obviously they light the scene rather well. And what's neat about these is these are just testing boxes. But we decided, well, sometimes you want a light source to look like, well, what you want it to look like. So if you have a convincing light source, such as this, what is it, Trouble game playing piece, I think that's what it is, you can double click on your light, and just like adding a model inside of another model, you can click in the mimic space, and that light will now look like your object. So it's a really cool way to add character. You can go ahead and add, let's see, open up this one, and now our character is lit. So let's say we want to make him a very bright, intense red, because he's a scary guy. It's a great way to highlight players. It's a great way to highlight objectives. It can add a lot of scene or a lot of mood to your scene. It's a new feature, so there are some, wonky display things going on, but overall, this is a really fun feature. So this is BattleBox3D. It's coming out soon. We're working on getting models, primarily, more models than just the guy model standing in there. And we're working on setting it up so that you can get them. You can buy them for dirt cheap, especially compared to real-world models. We are probably going to need some help setting all that up. So check us out on the forum. And if you have any comments, go ahead and leave comments in the forum. We really love hearing from you guys. And thank you very much.